Alright guys, so this is your 34th tutorial, and this tutorial is gonna be a long one because I'm gonna cover a very important topic, that is operator overloading. Now, operator overloading confuses a lot of people. I mean, it's really confusing, and most of people don't even put their hands on operator overloading because as I said, it's confusing. But I'm just gonna put it in a very simple way, and you're gonna understand it crystal clear. All right. So by the end of this tutorial or the end of next two tutorials, you're gonna be a pro at operator overloading, and I guarantee that. So what a operator overloading is, we just learned function overloading a couple tutorials ago. So operator overloading is same overloading an operator to perform a different job, right? Now you always do operator overloading in a class, so that operator uses the objects of that class to work with the different definition that you give it. So let me just tell you some basic things that operator overloading, whenever we create its definition and its parameters, there are different types of operators that we talked about, and I didn't tell you the classification, but here it is. The operator that work on a single variable, those are called urinary operator. Urinary operator. Those who work on two variables, those are binary operator. All right, binary operator. And then there are relational operators and different, but what I wanted to tell you is urinary operators, like the increment operator, it just works on one variable, right? A plus plus or b plus plus, whatever the actual variable name is. So this is a urinary operator. Now a plus b or a minus b or a divided by b, all those are binary operators because they require two variables to work with, right? Now when we write the definition of our operator overloading, I'll tell you why what I just told you 1 minute ago, that is very useful in that definition. All right, so let's just build a class and let's just name it overload, and then let's just start creating. Let's just create two variables into feet and ends. We're gonna deal with heights in this class, so it would be very easy to understand. So now those two are private variables. Now in the public, we gotta name a function. Let's just build a constructor first, which will assign the initial values to our operators. So we're gonna pass in int a comma int t, and the definition int equals a and int equals b. Alright, so we have a constructor that requires two variables for assigning the initial values to any object. Alright, now we need a blank constructor, right, that doesn't require any parameter and that doesn't assign any values. Now why we need that, I'll tell you later. Alright, so just stick with me right now. Now we have a class with a constructor that assigns values of feet and inch to the two variables. Now let's just build a alright, let's just build a function that displays these values. Alright, so void display, and inside display let's just print the height is feet and inch. And let's just end that line. Alright, so now we have a pretty looking class named overload, which has a constructor that takes two values and assigns them to feet and inch, and we have a function that displays out those values. So let's just test this out and then we'll move on to operator overloading. So let's just build an overload object. Let's build two objects. First object is gonna be obj1 and next one is gonna be obj2. Now we gotta pass in the initial values to the constructor, so let's just pass in 5 6 5 feet 6 inch, and this one's gonna be 5 feet 8 inch. Alright, so now let's just call the display function for first one, and the display function for second one. Let's just test it out, and hopefully I don't mess anything up. And here it is. Overload was not declared in this, so make sure you spell everything correctly, right? So let us cite it. Now this will run this, and this time it will run for sure. Alright, so we built two objects with 5 6 and 5 8, and it shows the height is 5 6 and the height is 5 8. Now for this tutorial I'm gonna overload the addition operator. Alright, so remember when we add two heights from a maths class, 12 inches is 1 feet. Alright, so we always write height like 5 feet 11 inch or something. We never write 5 feet or 14 inch, because when it gets more than 12 inch we just add 1 to height, so it's gonna be 6 feet 2 inch. Alright, so like this we need to overload the addition operator to perform this calculation. So let's just overload that, and now here comes the important part. Now pay attention very carefully. Alright, to overload operator, what you do is you write the return type, alright, then give a space, then you write operator, and then the sign of operator. In this we're gonna overload the addition operator, so you just insert plus, and then you insert those two brackets, and in that you pass in parameters. Now remember at the starting I told you about urinary or binary operator. Now urinary operator, you cannot pass any parameter for overloading a urinary operator. For binary operator you can just pass one parameter. Alright, if the operator works on two variables you can pass one parameter. If the operator works on one variable you can pass zero parameter. Alright, so it's always number of variables minus one. Now after this, just like a function, write in its definition what do you want to perform. So in this we're gonna return a overload object. Alright, so the return type would be overload, because we're gonna return a overload object, right? And now here in the parameters we're just gonna pass a overload object, obviously. So let's just pass a overload object k, and now inside the definition here we need a blank constructor. Now we created a blank constructor for this thing. Alright, because whenever we created this constructor, what it did is it will always require two parameters. Alright, but for overloading this operator we need a overload object without any parameters. So that's why we made a blank constructor, and this is also constructor overloading. Alright, because we are making two constructors and they are performing different jobs based on their parameters, right? So here are two integer parameters and here there are no parameters. So this is also an example of constructor overloading. And now let's just create an overload object temp. Right, now with the help of temp we'll add the feet with the feet and the height with the height of the two objects we pass in. So let's just call temp dot feet. Remember, we are accessing the feet variable of the temp object here. Alright, so the feet variable will be equals to feet plus k dot feet. Now don't get confused here, because I'll explain it from the beginning. We have a temp variable here that will store the added values in this variable, and then we'll return this variable, and we are going to return a overload object, right? So that's why the return type is overload. Now here we access the feet variable of temp object. Now here comes one more point, and I think I should split this up into two tutorials, so because it's gonna get pretty long. So see you guys in next tutorial.